everybody, welcome back. Gerald here with your weather forecast. Hope you had a wonderful week and happy Friday. Congratulations, you made it. We have now made it to the weekend just about, so that is super exciting. We are going to touch on that weekend forecast in today's video, but we're also going to talk about this active weather pattern going into next week and what I think will be some brutally cold air working its way into the lower 48 going through next week, and we'll talk about who has that potential of some icy and snowy weather. One disclaimer I do kind of want to give you ahead of that is I'm sure you've seen all over the place these YouTube thumbnails talking about major ice storm, major snowstorm on the way, and you've probably seen the snowflake or maybe the little icy symbol on your weather app, but I don't want you to buy too much into all of that because the pattern, although conducive, I don't think this will be nearly as widespread of a winter event as what we had just a week ago. So I'm sorry to disappoint if you're looking for some of that wintry weather, but my job here is to be honest with you and give you the most educated forecast I can. So again, I'm sure you've seen plenty of those crazy things throughout social media, but just don't fall for that and make sure you're always getting reliable information. With that said, though, if you are new here, my name is Gerald. I am a meteorology major here at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, so I am studying meteorology. This is kind of my passion, as I talk about all the time, and hopefully it's also your passion. It probably is if you're willing to go onto YouTube and get a weather forecast, so that is super cool. But if you haven't already subscribed, I'd love for you to do so. We're getting very close to 1,000 subscribers now. We're working our way there, and I think we'll get there sooner rather than later, which is super exciting. Also, go ahead and hit that like button and comment and tell me where you're watching from and what you want to see going into next week. With all that said, though, let's go ahead and get into the forecast because I don't want to ramble on for too long here. So looking at our radar, we do have a bit of a clipper system here that we were talking about yesterday that has moved through kind of the Great Lakes region and into the Midwest, as you can see on your map here, producing some snow, although nothing crazy. But behind that, you can see some more snow falling up here into the northern Rockies from Montana all the way down to Salt Lake City, seeing some of that snow. What that is going to do is work its way here through the northern plains over the next 24 to 48 hours and bring a pretty nice swath of snow. But looking at current satellite here and kind of the weather we've seen today, some pretty nice weather here across sections of the south. Here in Charlotte where I'm at, it's been a very beautiful day. Sun has been out throughout the entire day, which is why you're probably able to actually see me here with that sun coming through the window. But it's also been pretty cold here after that cold front that moved through a couple days ago. So moving ahead here, looking at our current hazards, again, we do have that risk here of some of those winter weather conditions here into the northern plains and the northern Rockies over the next 24 to 48 hours. And we'll talk more about that here in a minute as we go ahead and look at that weekend forecast. But I do want to give you our temperature forecast for tonight and going through this weekend. Another pretty cold night ahead of us for most of us. You can kind of find where you live on this map and get that temperature forecast. Then same story here for tomorrow. You can kind of see where you're at, but temperatures rebounding pretty well tomorrow, especially compared to today, as that cold front kind of has faded away that moved through a couple days ago, and we introduce another low pressure system that will help to bring in some of those warmer temperatures going into this weekend. Same story for Sunday. Again, you see especially those warmer temperatures here into the southeast, although we will have some rain in the southeast on Sunday, helping to keep some temperatures down for some of us. So, talking about this system and that snow as well as rain, you can see here going into this is Saturday afternoon, we're likely going to see some of that snow beginning to break out here into the northern plains, but also rain here on the southern side of that moving through the southeast going into especially Sunday. I think Saturday overall will be a pretty nice day, but once you get into Saturday evening and Sunday, that's whenever I would begin to watch out for that heavier rain to move into areas of the southeast. You can see that here. This is going into Sunday morning from Saturday night. I'll back this up a little bit. You can see that band of snow moving through the plains here, but then also that rain picking up here into the southeast and the Ohio River Valley. This is for Sunday morning, so make sure you bring your umbrella. It kind of feels like it's rained every Sunday. I don't know the statistics on that off the top of my head, but Sunday has always kind of felt like a rainy day, especially the past month or so. But that rain will continue, especially into the southeast, going into Sunday night. Another washout really for this Sunday, much like last Sunday was, although much clearer weather into the mid-Atlantic and northeast. And then that begins to clear out going into Monday afternoon, which sets us up for this next impactful system that we will talk about, and I'm sure you've been hearing lots about. All right, so I did want to talk about that snowfall totals real quick for this week, and you can see a pretty nice swath of 3 to 5 inches of snow here from South Dakota through sections of northern Iowa here, through Chicago, especially the northern suburbs of Chicago, I think getting some of that snow into a place like Milwaukee, and through sections of Michigan seeing that snow this weekend. Okay, so let's go ahead and set the stage here for next week and talk about why we have that potential for some icy and snowy weather across a section of the country. So this is for Sunday night. This is going to be a pretty potent cold front moving in here behind kind of that active Sunday that we see in terms of that rain falling. So this is what we need to watch and what we're likely going to see, and we've been talking about this really for a week now. So the forecast for this is holding up very well, which I'm happy to say because we kind of talked about this battleground zone even a week ago. But where we see kind of these two air masses meet, we're likely going to get multiple waves of low pressure to work in between them, and that is what is going to help to cause some areas of some snowy and icy weather. So taking a look at that here, we'll start with our GFS, and then I'll show you the European model as well, and I'll show you those similarities that we have between the two, but I'll also talk about why I don't think this will be a widespread impact event, although some of us definitely will see some pretty good impacts out of it. So going into, back this up a little bit actually, this is going into Monday afternoon. You can see we kind of get this first little wave of energy to work in between these boundaries, and on the northern side of that, we are definitely going to see an area of snow and ice. Now, the reason I don't think this will be nearly as impactful as what we had a week ago is just because the area that is impacted by that winter weather will be much slimmer compared to last week where we had a big chunk of the country here dealing with that winter weather. This time it'll be kind of small slivers here and there that kind of see that overlapping, and you'll see that here as we move this through next week. This is going through now next Tuesday. You see then we get kind of another little boundary here to set up, another system to ride up that battleground zone, and once again you get an area of some icing and snow, and then behind that one we get kind of even another plume of moisture to work its way up, and I think kind of this third wave, if you will, of sorts, although it's kind of all really attached, going into next Thursday will likely be the most impactful, where I think we get the most overlapping of some of that cold weather combined with that precipitation, helping to produce some snow and ice. So one of the reasons that ice is kind of a concern with this system compared to some of the other systems we've seen so far this winter is because of the overall setup. Remember whenever I showed you that temperature map, we had this super cold Canadian air and this warm Gulf of Mexico air kind of fighting. And what that helps to do is cold air likes to sink because it is dense. So whenever that gets down here, that sinks to the surface. But unfortunately, as these low pressures ride up over this boundary of cold air to the north, it helps to push this warm Gulf of Mexico air over that cold air, and that creates rain in the northern or the upper parts of the atmosphere. And then as that falls to the surface, it then freezes into either sleet or freezing rain. So that's why I have that concern for ice here, and I don't think it'll be quite as easy as a rain-snow line as the GFS may be projecting here going into next Thursday. And then you can see that kind of works its way out. And then we're just dominated by that very cold, dry, high pressure going into next weekend. So that's the GFS. Let's go ahead and take a look at the European model now and look at some of those similarities. On the Euro here also shows an area here of that kind of precipitation overlap. There's been some really big disagreements in the models here for places like Oklahoma and Texas. The Euro has been very kind of gung-ho here on seeing some kind of winter weather there into sections of the panhandles of Texas up through Oklahoma City. And the GFS, like we just showed, has really nothing there. So that's why we still have a lot of uncertainty with this. This is just for 4 or 5 days out, and we still don't really know what we're going to be dealing with in sections there of the south central plains. But moving this ahead, you see the same general kind of pattern with the European model of some overlapping here, and then especially going into next Thursday up here through the Ohio River Valley and potentially the northern mid-Atlantic and the southern kind of New England area, seeing some of that overlap before once again the Euro shows us clearing out and being dominated by that very cold high pressure, as well as drier weather going into next weekend. Okay, so kind of showing this to you in another way, and sorry, it looks like my map has decided to move itself into the wrong place. Sorry about that. I'll bring it back to the right place for you here. So another way I want to show this to you is with our ensemble showing kind of where these low tracks set up. So going into next Monday here, you can see this area of low pressure here off the southeast coast. That's what we're going to be dealing with this weekend that causes that rain. Now, I want you to watch on the back end of that, we have, once again, like I've been talking about, this very cold Canadian high pressure. And what is likely going to happen here, as you watch here, going ahead into the middle of next week, we get a lot of these little low pressures to kind of ride up and under that. So it's kind of hard to see on this map, but these places where you see kind of these clusters of kind of beige-ish numbers, indicate tracks of low pressure riding to the south side of that cold air. So the setup here is kind of difficult one just because we don't have a single low pressure to track. You can see we kind of have scattered low pressures here just kind of riding over this boundary. So we're going to get likely multiple waves here of this rain and precipitation moving over that cold air going into the middle of next week. And you can see here going into next Thursday just how many of these numbers we have indicating multiple rounds of kind of these weak waves moving through the region. So what does this mean in terms of chances of snow and ice? So to show that to you, I'll show you this here. This is the chances of seeing an inch of snow within a 24-hour period. And as you can see, as we get into the beginning part of next week here, this is with the Euro ensembles, you get the highest chances there into the northern mid-Atlantic and sections of the Ohio River Valley, although the numbers here are not off the charts. I mean, the highest numbers we're seeing here into the highest terrains of West Virginia are just cracking 50%. And for this to be less than a week out, that's really not super high confidence. Then you can see as we go further ahead into time, those chances kind of continue, and although they are very small, until we get into next week and then that high pressure begins to take over. So same thing looking at our GFS ensembles here. You can see going into the middle of next week, same kind of area, seeing that highest chance and that overlap, although once again for this to only be a week out, these are pretty small numbers. You're struggling to get past 25-30% chance of seeing an inch of snow in a lot of these areas. So again, my biggest concern right now would be the icing potential with this, especially since we're likely not going to have super heavy downpours over this. I think what we're going to likely see is kind of a misty, drizzly kind of freezing rain, if we do see that freezing rain. And a lot of the times that accumulates better than heavy freezing rain just because it gives it a better chance to go ahead and accumulate. So you can see the highest chances of seeing that icing with our latest blended models is back into Texas and Oklahoma, like the Euro has been showing, and then also getting that kind of pathway here through the Ohio River Valley. In terms of snowfall, this is what you'd be looking at. And again, it's not really much to talk about. So, you've seen kind of these crazy forecasts all over the place, but in reality, this really there's not that much snow that we're going to see with this setup in all likelihood. But one thing I do think we will see is very cold temperatures behind this. So this is going into the middle of next week, and then finally into next weekend here, you see we get this very cold weather to work its way into sections of the eastern half of the country. So I do think we'll have a very cold start to February, even if we don't see much of that ice or snow. So takeaways from this video, don't get too caught up in all the hype that you've seen all over the place. And just what we do know is we'll likely see cold air going into next weekend, but as for snow and ice, some people will likely see some, but I don't expect a blockbuster event out of this, especially compared to what we were dealing with a week ago where, parts of Arkansas saw a foot of snow. We're not going to have anything like that with this system, but we will definitely watch it. With all that said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Friday and a wonderful weekend, and I will see you all tomorrow.